to Serial Podcast 9.
Hi, I'm Gerard Peralta.
And I'm Kevin Peterson.
And I'm Ryan Benoit, and this is Serial Podcast 9. Gerard, what are we talking about today?
We had a listener write in, and his name was
Deep underscore. Yeah, Deep Freeze DF. But listen, it's Deep underscore Freeze underscore DF messaged me with a question, which Gerard's going to read now.
All right. So he said, here's an idea. Why don't you talk about USDM cars, like what muscle car each of you would own if you had to have one? How would you style it, build it? Would it be drag car, time attack, street? Maybe an episode could feature a muscle car friend if we have any of those. We do have some, but unfortunately, we didn't get any today. But we definitely will talk about muscle cars and USDM cars today. I think that's a good topic.
So let me start by thanking Gerard for reading the question because I didn't want people to know that I'm illiterate. Second point, I'm going to apologize for anything in advance that I say in this episode because I'm going to be very ignorant about everything and just the most close-minded asshole, I think. So, all right, let's do it. So, Gerard, you have to buy a USDM car. What are you going to get?
Is it a new USDM car? Let's start with that, or is it going to be an old car?
So I thought about this two ways, and I've actually thought about it a lot this week. So my first thought was like, if you could have any USDM car you wanted.
Oh, geez.
And then I thought that's not even really that fair, right? Because it's like I would just say like, oh, if I had to have like any of them, I guess give me like a Ford GT or something like that, right? Like
like an old one, right?
Yeah, just something dumb and ridiculous, or
an
even
original
a new one.
Shelby Cobra.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's probably what I'd get. I'd get a GT for sure, Ford GT.
Yeah, you get the most, except for Kevin. Kevin, any USDM car. I know this is hard for you because you never sit around and daydream.
I definitely get a Ford Taurus.
SHO or what? It's got to be an SHO. It's got the Yamaha engine.
Oh, that's right.
Right?
Conan O'Brien has one of those.
Revs to 7,700 or something.
No, I don't know. Like an original Shelby Cobra would be cool. I think kind of like, I think side pipes are cool. I think no top ever. Like that's cool. Like,
all right.
Yeah.
I like Vipers. Viper was like a poster car for me.
Yeah, Kevin's a Viper guy for sure. That's what he'd have.
Yeah.
I liked Vipers as well, but because when I was growing up, there was a TV show called Viper, and it was
that was so bad.
I'm all about that, dude.
Like
if you could have a hologram that like projected over your car so that it would become another car, that's like the ultimate getaway, you know?
Yeah. My biggest fear is that this episode just becomes me talking about cars and pop culture that I think might be okay. Like, what cars would you have?
Van. Yo, kid.
Yeah.
Kid.
Like a Bumblebee from
Bullet.
Transformers.
You remember the movie Bullet?
Not lying at all. When I was trying to answer this question, I was like, maybe I would choose one of the cars from Bullet. And I was like, Charger from Bullet. And then I looked at it, I was like, no, I wouldn't. And then But then I was like, would I get the Charger from Dukes of Hazzard? And I was like, nope, not the climate for that car. So
fully saw the whole car, like roof,
really?
Was it?
doors, everything, the whole thing.
You saw what?
The Dukes of Hazzard Charger.
Oh yeah, the General Lee. I saw that. I saw one
on
too.
The roof.
I don't know where I saw that, but I saw one.
Yeah,
I showed it to Dominic. I'm like, that was General Lee. Yeah.
So this became the dilemma for me, and in this was like thinking about it as like I went through a list of like all these cars and pop culture that I saw, and I was like, that's what I would drive. And I've had a stock answer for this question for a very long time. And then I actually looked at the car and I was like, I don't even think I would get that. But like back when a younger me thought if I ever had to answer this question, I'd be like, oh, the original GTO is what I would own.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought I
would say we should pick one old car or a couple old cars and a couple new cars. Like what you think is cool from like as the muscle car that you would build, and then a new car that you would like buy and drive off the lot and then maybe build that.
Okay.
Because I feel like my two cars would be quite different.
I also think that we should actually put a realistic number on this. So it's like gun to your head, you have to get rid of your project cars that you have and get
what the fuck?
I wanted to be realistic. No, it can't be like a daydream. Like, it has to be a real thing. And the real thing is within your budgetary constraints, which Gerard's are way higher for
No,
him
they're
because money
definitely
is
not.
no obstacle. And then Kevin and I will have like way more tame budgets. But yeah, I think it should be within reason of like what you could probably afford. Like if I had to sell the Aristo, what would I have instead?
But I mean, you can't buy shit for that much. What the fuck are you gonna buy?
Well, I've looked. I had
I
to
don't know,
do a lot
Aristo
of
level
research.
cars. You know what I mean? You're not going to be like
it's gonna be boring. You can't buy anything for like 20K. 20K is nothing for an American car.
Can you not
You're
buy
gonna
a
buy
Beck
like
or a CTSV?
Yeah, I don't want any of those cars though.
Well, this is the
But I
struggle.
mean,
What would
is
you
that
do?
not on a like Aristo level car? You're not going to trade up from the Aristo into like
Yeah, but the question was, what would each of you own if you had to have one? I.e.,
Okay,
like
I mean,
you
I
don't really
mean,
like American cars.
I mean, I picked the AC Cobra.
So-
Like, I don't know. That's not like I can't sell the Altezza and buy an AC Cobra.
Okay, so what do
Like-
you like about it? Why is the Cobra cool?
Like
Why
I
is the
said, I don't
Cobra
know.
sick?
I don't know. The Heritage is super sick. Like the motor sounds sick. The side pipes are sick. The like no roof, no side windows is super sick.
So what about a
pretty-
replica? You wouldn't want to drive a
Kind of
replica?
Well, I mean, I don't know. It was like buy whatever you want. So like that, I won't.
Yeah, no,
why
for
wouldn't I
sure.
buy the
But I mean,
original
like,
for sure. you know?
But the price, if you wanted to have that,
A rep would be cool too. Like a
You
rep
would
with,
say
like,
that
a,
with your
with a
CR
1J.
lies.
a rep with a 1J. Like how sick would
oh
that
man, I would never put a 1J in a Cobra. Not a fucking chance.
be?
Not
I'll put a rotary in.
Would you ever put an RB26 in a Mustang
Yeah, for sure.
and then become the Drift King? Well,
Yeah.
we got a screenplay to go back in time and write. All right. So no budget. Yeah. Okay.
But first of all, like, I mean, right now we're talking about old cars, but I mean, like, if you guys actually know old cars, there's plenty of old cars. But I have a feeling that maybe Ryan, you probably couldn't pick like an old car that was, I guess, if you had to say start with 20 grand, you probably wouldn't know a whole lot of cars to choose from, sort of thing.
Like any car?
Yeah,
Or
like no, from like a muscle car that, let's say you had like I would assume it's around 20 grand for the Aristo, right? So like
Yeah,
you had to
let's say.
get that, and that would be your project car. And then what would you do with that project car?
I mean, this is the struggle. Is like there are things that you could do, but would you want to? It's like Jody's uncle has like an older GTO just sitting in a barn, but it's not the big block or like, you know, it's like,
Yeah.
it's not the good version
It's
of
not
it.
the
It's like
Judge.
it's not. It's like the entry level, the smaller.
But I mean,
engine.
that's still cool.
I
pretty
do
cool.
know this. I would never choose any muscle car from the 80s.
No,
I would just give up on cars. I'd be like, that's it. I'm done here.
I don't know. I don't know. Like to me, like muscle car also like I also will say I'm kind of ignorant towards American cars. Like when I started really getting into cars, it was because of Japanese cars. You know, like I did think muscle cars were cool. Like I did grow up
Mhm.
around cars, but like I was never super drawn to them. I always thought the Superbird was super stupid and hilarious, but like,
oh really?
but I don't think I would.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever own one. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so ridiculous
exactly.
that you like. But I don't.
Yeah, it's way
like,
more ridiculous than a pink car with zebra seats.
Yeah, honestly though, it's basically exactly the same amount. You know.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you'd get people looking at you.
But that's a car you could just buy like that.
Yeah, they're
Like,
crazy.
he didn't take it home and paint it orange. He didn't take it home and
No.
put the like 3-foot wing on.
No, it came.
Like,
It came in all those weird fucked up colors.
Yeah, exactly. He rolled off the lot
Yeah.
like that. Like,
Yeah, they raced it on Sunday, and then you go to the dealership on Monday and buy the car. That's how it is. I used to
sure.
say the GTO because I remember watching something once, and I have no idea if this is accurate. And if it is wrong, someone can tell me that I'm wrong, and I don't care about this. Was that they said like the GTO was one of the original ones where it was like you kind of bought it for a decent price, but then there was just like the aftermarket catalog. Like it was like very easy to build.
Well,
and
Mopar catalog is
customize.
huge.
Yeah, and it was just like
Like
this car is
Mopar
super
catalog
easy to
is massive.
customize. And so it was
Yeah.
like the dawn, not like the dawn of modifications, but probably
Mhm.
into the realm of like modifications that I understand, where it's like,
Mhm.
no, I'll just pick a item from a catalog and bolt it on. And so
Ye-
that is why I think like the GTO.
You used to be able to buy from Dodge. You used to be able to buy like I can't remember what they were called, but it was like a super basic stripped out version. It came with like the shittiest wheels and like no interior and like super thin paint because it was going to be a race car. So you'd buy this like kind of cheap version, but it had like the huge engine and shit in it. But like you'd buy this kind of like basically like a canvas, and then just go through the Mopar catalog and like choose like wheels and all this stuff and headers and carbs.
Yeah, that's cool.
But that's pretty cool. That's basically like Porsche.
I mean, I still feel that like you kind of do that. Don't they have the like that like drag Hellcat that comes with the like tiny front wheels and like it basically does like a 10-second quarter mile like
or
from
at
the
least
dealership.
If the
Mopar's always been about that.
And the kit's like $1 or something like that. It's a $1 add-on because they have to charge you for it, and it comes with.
They have to charge you for it. Yeah,
they have to charge you for it, and it's very inexpensive. And you get like all the things that you can put on it to make it
I mean, that's one thing I gotta hand it to American manufacturers, especially as of late. Like, I mean, especially Dodge, man. They straight up like don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? Like they like a Hellcat, and like with that new TRX, it's like, I'm gonna build this truck, and it's like I'm gonna put a Hellcat motor in it and supercharge it. It has like what 700 and I don't even know, like 800 horsepower, and it has AC. It has fucking launch control. It's a truck. It has like and all that shit is just super cool. And like the hood, it has like vents and like scoops and like LED lights, and like it literally has everything, man. And it's like pretty cool. You just buy it. You know what I mean? I do like those Chargers, like the 4-door Charger sedans. I do think those are super sick, like especially the new ones with like they come stock with those mesh wheels and like the Brembos. Like those things look tight, man, but they're really big. But yeah, they look sweet.
Didn't they put the Hellcat engine in a Jeep as well?
Yeah, I can't remember what that one's called. They always have some weird, crazy names.
Next they'll put it in like a Sonic or something, like their smallest car. Like
I would build so if I would build like a Chevy 2 or something, like a real small, it's like a 62 Nova or something. Those things are super light, super small, and just put like a crazy like 10,000 RPM NA like LS in it. Like huge cam, big fucking headers. I had a customer when I used to work at Mopac that had one of those, and I don't know what engine he had. It was like some 327 like D-stroked. It was like a circle track engine, and it was stick, which is like, for those cars when I used to work at Mopac was kind of rare that it was a standard high revving like V8. Yeah, it just like revved out. It fully just sounded like, the equivalent to like a JZ or B series, like wow, but it was a V8 and like just sounded so rad.
Like a 9,000 RPM V8 is a pretty crazy thing to hear.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
All
I'm
right.
not really a fan of not turning though. I do like the look, but I'm not really a fan of like trying to stop with 135s,
Yeah, that's fair. All right. Kevin, what would you start with?
Honestly, like if I had to pick a budget car, I don't even know. Like that's what I mean. Like I'm not well versed enough in the US, the like
Cars.
Classic US car,
Yeah, it's a tricky thing. I guess I would.
Yeah.
Would it be a Chevy, a Ford, or a Dodge? How about that? Let's start with that.
I have no brand loyalty to any of them. So
Well,
it doesn't really matter,
No.
No, I mean,
Right.
I don't hold Ford super strong in my heart, that's for sure. But
yeah, you wouldn't want a Mustang.
Oof.
Honestly, though, if
Like
it
a
was like one of the
Mustang.
The classic Mustangs, not so much. But then like I don't know, one of the newer Mustangs, like honestly, would appeal more to me, like because they kept making like
body.
same thing. It's like they make them great. No, like I know after that where they just keep getting like more bananas and more bananas, like kind of like the same thing the Dodge is doing, where it's like they're all chasing each other,
I mean, if I had to buy a brand new car off the lot, it would 100% be a Mustang.
I mean, maybe last gen I might have bought a Corvette, but I wouldn't be buying this gen Corvette.
You don't want the mid-engine?
I got no love for vets.
No, I mean not that
Looks
one.
like a 4-year-old fucking designed it.
It looks like the
What'd you say?
plastics on my motorcycle.
No, I got no love for that car.
I feel like I would take that
Well,
if it
there
was
you go.
like anything, but that's not within the budgetary
Tell me why.
restraints that I built in my head. And in my head, I also actually landed on if I had to get a new one off the lot, and if it had to be a muscle-ish car, which I think there's like a technicality where some people maybe don't think Mustangs are muscle cars. I don't know if that's true or not.
They're absolutely muscle cars.
I
don't
thought
know
they
Billy
called them,
muscle
like,
cars
pony
ended in the
cars or something.
70s, bro.
Fine. I would get like a 2016 Mustang, but then budgetary restraints would probably mean that I'd get an EcoBoost Mustang, which is a
Get
turbo.
the fuck out of here. No.
Why would you
no,
even
Which
buy it
then
then?
puts me right back in what I understand as turbos.
no EcoBoost here.
You might as well
Wow,
get an
come on.
EcoBoost fucking Focus. It's lighter.
Yeah, well, maybe. But I'm saying budgetary restraints. I don't know. Could I afford the V8?
Man, fuck your budget. Which one would you buy? The V8 one? Okay, you'd buy the V8 one, and now you got a V8 Mustang. What are you
In
gonna do
my
to it?
mind, when I was preparing for this episode, I was like, I'm going to be fucking difficult, and I'm going to say
Okay,
EcoBoost and
at
make
least you're
everyone
getting
mad.
an EcoBoost. You're not getting a V6 one, because I mean, I feel like if you're gonna get a turbo 4-cylinder, I bet you that engine's pretty good. You could probably boost the living shit out of it. It's cool.
Yeah.
But like, you get a
yeah.
V6 one, you just sound like shit. Actually, that's not true, man. Those things sound all right. The V6s.
Ford
Nah,
does
I
have
heard
shit
one the
out
other
there.
day,
make
and
a
I was like, I
sound,
mean, it
you
doesn't
know?
sound like a Mustang. I wouldn't say it sounds good as a Mustang, but like, it doesn't sound like a VQ.
I read an article that said there was like reasons why to get an EcoBoost. And look, people are going to be very upset about this, and I get that. Also, I
Same
don't
people
care.
that want you to
have-
buy a 7M.
I don't know, man. I got a 2J in the basement. I'm fine. I'm good. No,
Yeah.
but I read it and it was like,
I want that on a T-shirt. I got a 2J in the basement. I'm fine.
yeah, I'm good. It said like it might actually like handle better, and they said it was like more closer to like an import car, which I was like, all right.
Who fucking
And-
cares? Yeah.
Well, me, because I don't want to stray too far from home. I want to know what I know. You know, I'm
It's
not
like
out
if you're
there-
gonna jump, get the get the V8, get the muscle car, be an American, do it.
I'm not an American. I want to dig my heels in and be a jackass. I said in the beginning, and I apologize
For the
in
record,
advance.
Ryan's a vegetarian, so that might
Yeah.
sway the little V8 to 4-cylinder thing a little bit.
I'm almost a vegan, Gerard.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I
sorry.
would-
So
Vegan.
vegan's only one 4-cylinder.
Vegan is V6. V6 There you go.
What about a
But doesn't make-
V8?
Yeah, exactly.
What about a V12?
No, I think it's very funny because I would say like. and
Okay,
that
so now you
is-
have the Mustang though. Like, let's just forget about what power plant it has. You have the Mustang. What are you doing to it?
Well, it matters on what power plant I have. If I have the turbo, you got to put a bigger turbo on it. You got to do all the things that you
Okay,
would
well
just
that's
do to
cool.
put
I
in for it.
don't know. Sure.
There's a dude that's built one to like 700 horsepower, but that is dumb because the V8 would easily make it to that amount. And
Not
you can
really,
do it
man.
to-
No, because okay. So were you gonna get the NAV8? I don't know what they make, 400, 500 horsepower, something like that, right?
I think it's like 500.
To get to
I looked.
700, you'd probably have to force induct a car that didn't come with force induction.
I ain't got time for that. I think no matter how you
I guess what I'm
No,
saying,
you're just gonna put a cam and spray it.
except they have 4 cams. It's not an
Jesus.
LS.
Kevin, get it together.
That's what I mean. I don't know shit. Like, what is it? A 1UZ?
Yeah.
It's a
How do
V8
I
with
take
4
that-
cams.
Listen,
Yeah.
is this V8 certified for air, boats, and
Are
cars?
there- yeah.
God.
There aren't any
Not
push
into
rods?
Nobody's
This
gonna
is-
want to listen to this podcast because we don't ever fucking actually talk about the cars that we'd build. We just talk about like a bunch of nonsense. That, like,
The problem is that you've never listened to a podcast, and that's all podcasts are. The V8 GT Mustang 2021 has 460 horsepower, 420.
no, you got to go to the Cobra, bro. The GT350,
The
or
GT 350. Yeah, I would get those, but
yeah.
in my mind, I put in budgetary restraints.
Okay.
760 for the GT 500.
Oh,
Hey, Ryan,
shit.
Dream a
Yo.
little dream. Just
Is that
dream a
that's
little dream.
supercharged, correct? What size is
Uh,
it? It's a 5-liter, or is it?
If it's on a
5
5 liter,
5.2 liter V8, supercharged.
yeah, a
This is the most
5.2
I've
liter,
ever-
5.2 liter supercharged V8 makes 420 foot-pounds torque.
No, Kevin, it makes 625 foot-pounds of torque. At
Oh, shit.
5,000 RPM.
How did it? But it makes 500 horsepower.
No, that is the GT.
Oh,
this is the GT
oh, okay, okay.
500.
Okay,
We've
okay.
almost converted you to a Mustang. You're like, whoa, wait a minute.
No, that's I'm down with Mustangs, like I said.
Yeah, there's a lot of social responsibility though of like driving a Mustang.
Could I crash into people?
Yeah,
I probably could. Yeah.
you ready to take that leap? You want to hold someone's life in your hands? I mean, they just do it at Cars and Coffee Mates, leaving the lot.
I would probably do that at Cars and Coffee Meet too, but I just hopefully wouldn't hit the crowd, you know? Got to stunt a bit.
Got a stunt. That's how it gets into trouble. So you would be a Mustang owner, which is perfect.
I'm a Mustang owner at heart because I love Fox bodies.
You love Fox bodies?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Growing up, like so I was born in 84, and then like growing up with having like that era of muscle cars exist, like the Fox body and shit.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no wonder I got into imports. Like, look at those cars.
That's the only car, and it's probably because of like I knew someone who had one, and like that was like the first car that like I like was scared in and like got sideways in, and like, you know, yada yada yada. So maybe that's probably the only reason it holds a special place. But like,
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
God, those are just. I swear, there's someone I went to high school with that had a Fox body Mustang 5-liter, and on the back it must have been like airbrushed or something, and said like "Puss Stang" on the back. Like, okay. What a time. I can't get down with Fox bodies.
We've been talking about muscle cars, or like we've been sort of talking about muscle cars, and to me that's one aspect, and that's not even the aspect I like.
Yeah, that's fair. So let's shift that, because I was gonna say, like, you guys, I could see going to trucks. Like Gerard would fully actually just build his like Carolina squat truck and be a pig in shit in that car.
And honestly, if I had to go buy a brand new American thing, I'd probably go buy like maybe I'd go buy a fucking Bronco.
That was
or
my easy out.
Some giant Dodge truck that could tow like the moon. But also, like, for me, it's honest. If I had to build an American car right now, I think I'd want to build like a 40s Mercury, like a huge lead sled with a chopped roof and like just frame dragging. I feel like you could get away with that car, and it's timelessly cool. And like,
no, I think that's cool too. That would be a good.
And it feels weird to say this, but another aspect of American car culture that I like absolutely love is like lowriders. Like,
yeah, I also thought that would be in your wheelhouse.
Like, I had a subscription to Lowrider magazine growing up, and I'd like have all like the centerfolds up on the wall. But I also, beside that, would have like all these weird JGTC cars and like Signal Auto cars, and like definitely a weird juxtaposition of car appreciation.
No, that's fair. But the lowrider stuff like makes sense. I did think a little bit about that, but then I actually thought like I don't have the fortitude to build a lowrider, or the know-how, or the attention to detail, because like a lowrider is a completely different, like a proper lowrider is a completely different game than like
it's every aspect touched.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I don't know, is it like
maybe
you could still have like a Regal on wires and call it a lowrider. You got 13s, you got Mustard and Moog Vogues, you know, like you got a chain wheel, you know, like maybe to you that's a lowrider, the same way coils and fake wheels or something is a build to someone else, you know, like full off like muraled fender liners and chromed engraved frame rails, and like you know, like the brake backing plates are engraved, or like that's another level. It's like you know, at that you're not driving that car probably ever.
No.
It's a piece of art.
It would be interesting to talk to someone in those. When Deep Freeze asked us this question, he was right to have a muscle car guy on, but not even a muscle car guy. It would be interesting to have someone like from that culture, because they must talk about that culture some way, in the same way that we talk about our car culture. Like, like you just said, like there must be like, that guy's half stepping. Like he doesn't know. Oh, like,
holy.
There's for sure the Gerard of that just drives around in his lowrider and calls everyone else peasants.
Yeah, he's got 21 batteries and like 16 switch setup, and like, you know, like if you're not at that level, then you're peasant, you know. If you're not hanging it on the rear bumper, hopping, if you can't hop, you know, like, I mean, like, is it really a lowrider if you don't have hydraulics? Like,
exactly.
But I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I appreciate muscle cars almost like the least out of American car culture.
So that's interesting. Muscle car is Kevin's least actual favorite part of USDM car culture. Gerard, like, where would you land on that? Because we just dove into muscle cars because that seemed like the way to go. But
well, I mean, that was the question. So
it actually said talk about USDM cars, and then it said like what muscle car. But so
okay,
truthfully, you could have actually been like, you straight up, I'd build a Carolina squat truck, and that would be my. And you almost did that.
Almost, yeah. A USDM car in general, like outside of muscle cars. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really super into drag cars. I'm not really super into pro touring cars. I'm not really super into like road racing type muscle cars, like muscle cars that are like made to turn.
You're just talking about straight up like race cars, though.
Okay, well, I'm still going. I'm making the list that Ryan loves me so much for. Yeah,
let the man paint. Every man is an artist.
Yeah, I guess I would probably build. Okay, yeah, I would probably build some sort of stanced out old car. Like, yeah, if I had that 62 Chevy, it'd probably have like, I don't know, VSKFs or something cool, like something Japanese maybe. And like, I would try to make it fitted, if you will. Shit, I'd even go as far as to put independent suspension on it, and so I could have a bit of camber. Like, I've never once in my life seen a muscle-bodied car with like camber and big wheels. It just doesn't exist. It seems as though you have to have full sunken front wheel fitment and like the ugliest wheels possibly in the world to be, a muscle car.
Yeah, that's fair. And so when I went through this mental activity in my head, it was like, how could you build a Mustang to be the most what you're into, closer to my Mustang? Yeah, like that's when I thought about it. I was
That'd
like, what would
easy.
you do? Yeah, and that's what I thought. That'd be the easiest way to do that, to get it in line with what I like.
Doesn't TF have like a Mustang, a road race Mustang?
I'll send you a photo right now of a cool Mustang, bro.
Okay. Right in the trash. It's good. No. But Kevin, the other thing that you could have said, which could be very Kevin, you could have a donk car.
Yeah, donk would be chill.
We went right over this. You could build just a full-on donk.
I could build like a Texas car with the 8-inch like wire wheel poke, swanging.
Yeah,
or you could build like a Texas mile race car.
Yeah, exactly. Like a nitrous, like twin turbo vet.
Yeah, like something that races on the highways and like, does like 10,000 kilometers an hour or something.
I'm gonna be flat out here though. Like the things with the wires that poke out from the wheels feels way more Kevin than like the super fast drag car. It needs to be the thing that like when Kevin gets gas, the dude's like, "Why do your wheels poke out so much?" It's like, "Leave me alone, I'm getting gas."
Yeah, I don't know. Not a huge. I mean, I've grown up with Mustangs and like Fox bodies are cool, and
I hate them.
You hate everything that's not a Toyota, a JDM, something or other.
I mean, yeah, probably. No, I like Nissans and I like Hondas. I don't know. I mean, that's a weird thing to think, though. Like, it's funny. So, Gerard, you grew up in a small town in Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Regina, Saskatchewan, which, like, it's still a city. It's capital of Saskatchewan, but it's funny to look at that. It's like kind of a weird place to get Japanese cars. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I got into muscle cars in Winnipeg. That's what was there. I mean, there were no. Honestly, though, when I first moved here in '89, that's when I really started getting into imports because I'd been into muscle cars the whole time before that, and I was probably 13 when I came here, and that's when I first started. Like, I guess Westwood Racetrack, which is here, had sort of closed down, and there were all these like X race cars. So there's like Corollas and Celicas and 510s, like tons and tons of 510s, and like 610s, 710s, rotary RX2s, 3s, like literally all those cool old cars were like, you just see them everywhere. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And that's when like buy and sell was around. And I was always just trying to get one of those like 70s import cars. And that's kind of, I guess, what got me into import cars generally.
So Kevin, then what got you into import cars? Because you said like the first car that you drove in that like scared you was a Fox body. But then
I was too young to drive at that point. I didn't get to drive that car.
But you were in it. That's what I was saying.
In that car, yeah.
And then you lost your affinity for it, and you're like, I should get a Corolla, which isn't fast at all. And
I think I just sort of knew American cars were shit, and like it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's the thing is like old American cars, like the styling is so cool, and like now I can like fully appreciate it. Like I could buy a car, I could buy a Cressida that was going to run forever. I'm never going to have to do anything. It's got power mirrors, got heated mirrors, got power seats, got power windows. The car's $1,000. It's going to work forever. Or I could go buy a brand new Cavalier, doesn't have any of that shit. It's going to break down in a year and a half, and it's going to cost me $20,000. It just didn't make any sense to be in, like, I don't know, old American cars were still a lot of money, or still a bit of money at least,
Yeah.
or a bit / a lot of work, you know?
Along the same lines as Kevin, my dad was like big into Toyotas. He was just like, I had all these domestic cars and they were all shit. So I got a Toyota and it was the best. Like my dad had a Camry, and then like an Avalon, and now he has a Prius. And it just influenced my brother and myself to get imports. So my brother got a Honda, and he was just a Honda loyalist for the rest of his life. He just Hondas and Acuras now. And I bounced around, and then I found Toyota, and I was like, well, that's what I'm sticking with. So I think it is just it's a weird thing, but like I said earlier, I hate all the muscle cars from the 80s. So they would have been somewhat affordable around the time that I was a teenager, and there was just none of them that did anything for me. I was just like, pretty sure a lot of these are what the villains drive in like the 80s action movies. Why are they so greasy looking? Not for me. And it was just like,
what about like Smokey and the Bandit, or is that 70s? What about Kit from Knight Rider?
Yeah, they're super junk.
What about Knight Rider, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
When I was a kid, I was
like
100% in love with the Trans Am. The Trans Am was my jam, man. I see that Firebird, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I want that car with the
It's
spoiler
got,
on
like,
the back, it's black with the gold.
Yeah, and like the T-tops,
Yep,
and like,
yep.
yeah, man. Like
And it's funny because today those cars are sick. Like people are like, yo, those cars are sick. And it's like, yeah, they were always sick. You know what I mean?
I just couldn't. I can't. I don't know. It just
really,
I don't know, man.
I don't like hate the C4 Vet or whatever either. Like, I don't hate the 80s sports cars.
Muscle cars, you mean? I don't hate the 80s whatever's.
Yeah, whatever. The 80s are great.
American cars. Muscle sports American cars.
I think it was just ingrained in me to be that way, though. Like I got an idea in my head, and then I just.
I mean, also like you're quite a bit younger than me too, right? So like,
yeah,
when I was your age, the cars that were around were a lot cooler. Like they were like leftovers from the 70s and 80s, being built in the 70s and 80s. Whereas when you were older, they were leftovers from like the 80s, 90s. So like, what really was cool, like. In 76, they implemented that whole like fuel crisis thing. So every car just got super fucking lame after 76. And then that like the 80s and 90s was like that huge period of like muscle cars had 200 horsepower, and like, you know what I mean? That's when all the little cars came out, because they're like, oh, we can have all these like efficient cars, and like there was like the Omni and like the GLH and
GLH,
I mean, like Mustangs of that era were like pretty crap, except for the Fox body. You know what I mean? Like a Mustang 2, really? Like that's like nobody wants a Mustang 2. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
but even the 90s Mustangs, I don't like them.
Like, yeah, they're pretty busted, but like they still have a 5-liter.
Yeah, the N95 or whatever.
Britney Spears singing "Hit Me One More Time" in the parking lot, her yellow Mustang convertible.
But it was pretty funny, like when I had a swapped Honda, or like, having Hondas and stuff. For a while, it was like a bit difficult to be like all these American car dudes. Like I worked at like Mopac, so like that for a while, it is definitely difficult to get any of those American muscle car guys to like respect your car. But when your 2.5 liter makes on the dyno as much horsepower as, I don't know, like a cammed out Heads 5 liter, and they're just like, whoa, that's pretty good for a 3 liter. And you're like, actually, it's a 2.5 liter. They're like, okay, that's like kind of sick. You know what I mean? Or like when I had a GSR engine in my Civic, and I'd pull up to like a Mustang and I'd rev it, and then he'd look over, one of these dudes, he looked over and he's like, that's one of those fast ones, isn't it? I'm like, yep. And then I raced him and I fucking kicked his ass. But then if you had a stock Honda and you're like, yo, Hondas are sick, But like, no, they're not, because the thing that has 100 fucking horsepower.
That's a funny thing though. So this is different. Actually, you and my brother are pretty close to the same age, but he was in Saskatchewan. So like his Hondas were never super fast. They had all the bolt-ons, but they were never like, and they were like proper bolt-ons at the time. It was like AEM type, and like Skunk 2 DC, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then, but it was like he had a Accord for his first car, and it had like Momo 15s on it, like chrome. And
did it have the ones with the little caps that you could change the color?
Yeah,
yeah. Those are
white stripes. Yeah.
And they could be like blue or yellow, or those are tight.
Yeah. And he would pick me up from elementary school, and teachers would walk over and be like, thought he was a drug dealer, like coming to get me from school. And my brother is just a taller. Well, and he had like, it was a lowered Honda Accord on, and it was like an 80s Honda Accord on Momos with a big like F40 wing on the like a super wing on the back. And people thought, and it was tinted windows, and it just looked like he was a drug dealer. And the teachers would walk over and be like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "Coming to get my brother from school." And I always thought that was super cool. And then what happened was he graduated to a Honda Civic Si, and he built that. And my brother's a graphic designer, so he put a livery on that car that was modeled after a Japanese like kind of touring car. And he had to campaign to get in. Like he wanted to compete in car shows because like he cared about aesthetics, and he had the only car show he could get into was the muscle car show, and he actually had to campaign the biggest muscle car like show in Saskatchewan to be like, let me compete in your car show. And so like they changed the rules and started letting imports in, because essentially my brother and his friends were like, we want to show off our cars.
Because there's nowhere else for them to do it.
Yeah, there was nowhere else to do it, so they had to like go into a scene that already existed. Eventually that all changed. I grew up, and Dota Logic started holding like giant car meets and stuff, and there was other stuff in between that. And obviously you have the Hot Import Nights era, which eventually like made its way through Saskatchewan, and my brother was in that car show, I was in that car show. But like, yeah, originally there was nothing else to do but put your car in car shows. Where I was from in that era, you didn't really go racing, and some people did, I guess. But yeah, all of that stuff that Gerard's talking about came after, where like dudes start putting different engines in their cars and being fast.
Sounds like a whole lot of import talk, boys. I don't give a shit about no import talk.
Well, that's what we do here.
When I had the GSR Civic that was like stripped out, and I think it was pretty fast. I would race anything. So I remember like thinking it was so cool to like, you'd kick Mustangs asses, Camaros easily, all those super loud, like not IROC, but the ones after that, just super noisy Camaros that were in Surrey. Like there's just, like, on D-Cell, they're just like the worst sound. Kick those guys' asses. Like I remember like there was this like
those ones with the big like snouty nostril.
Yes. I think those are LSs
those
actually.
Are so slow, man.
Yeah. And then there was like a box Chevy with like, vet everything. It was like a Harley dude. I remember I beat him. But then I raced a Cobra one time. It was at night. I was coming home. It was like probably 1 or 2 a.m. And I raced him down Canby, and that thing was so fucking fast. I was like, I felt a bit shitty because I was on my high horse. I'm like, yeah, my import's so much better. And then I got like whooped by a Cobra, and I was like, fuck. Okay, so now I need some, a Mustang Cobra. Like it was like a the 32 valve ones or whatever. And I was like, I gotta like make this thing faster to like.
I just like the pun of you were on a high horse and then you were beat by a car named after a horse.
I guess so. Yeah.
The car named after a horse and a snake.
I know, that was always the weirdest thing.
Yeah, but I mean, Pinto's a horse too, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I don't know. There's that definite era where like import car culture takes off, and then to bring it back to USDM culture, they're like, we need to tap into that, and they started building all these like, I'm air quoting, like tuner cars.
What, the Americans?
Yeah, they started putting out like, like how can we make neons faster, and it's like SRT4s, and then they like it was like, we need to appeal to this younger generation, and we need. And then
they had the Cobalt SS.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
I hate all those cars.
What do you like about a front wheel drive American car?
Well, okay. I remember I had a friend who had a GLHS back in the day, which was like, if that's the goes like hell, which is the Omni GLH, and then there's the goes like hell. I guess it was shit or
SM?
like, no, it was a GLHS.
Some more.
Yeah,
So
some more. That's what it
more.
was. Yeah, it goes like hell some more. But it was like a race car. It was like a gutted, 4-door Omni, sticky tires and like super modded, the whole Mopar catalog, and it was fucked
And
up
Omni's
fast.
like a little hatchback.
Yeah, a little hatchback, and those were
I'm
cool because
legit googling it right now.
they had the huge flares, like stock. They had huge flares, and he had some weird 15-inch wheels on it, and it was like an autocross car or something. But it was like, I remember the thing had so much torque steer. It was like, yeah, they got the horsepower right, but man, that thing, like, yeah, it could handle because it had like giant sway bars and like, huge Bilstein shocks. But man, like you'd get on the power and he'd be like wrestling the wheel because it would just want to turn like left or whatever. But yeah, it was fast, super, super fast.
I will say when import car culture like kind of came out, really it's one redeeming thing about it. Like when people were building cars, and I think you've kind of spoken to this in your street racing antics, Gerard, is that like kind of like drag racing was the only way for import cars to prove their like
absolutely.
When did autocross become a thing? I never autocross. Can't see myself autocrossing.
Is it a thing?
No, I don't know, man.
It's like still a thing.
It's a thing if you don't like
it.
ever getting out of second gear.
Yeah, it's autocross was really just a thorn in my side for a lot of in like my life. Like just them
I feel like
getting
that
mad
was
at
sort of a proving ground though for import car culture, where it's like, yeah, like you're never getting out of second gear, so it's literally entirely about the handling of the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, a smaller, lighter car can get around that same track.
Yeah.
Easier.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should reiterate. I mean, like en masse culture, like what made culture stick was. I mean, there's a whole movie that we all know that's based around street racing imports, and it's not about like dudes like Dominic Toretto isn't going to an autocross event to be like, watch me show you how fast my RX-7 is. Like, it was
can turn.
I was gonna.
Autocross is the urinal cake of the automotive bathroom.
What about a drift car? What would you build as a drift car for an American car?
Mustang?
Yeah, I'm going to 100% build a Mustang.
Yeah.
But is there any other options?
Yeah, I mean, you could drift anything.
Maybe you could build a Corvette. There's a lot of Corvette drift cars.
Yeah, a Vet, CTSV.
Yeah, CTSV. You could build a GTO.
Super
I feel like you could build a Viper. A Viper and GTO were like the original American drift cars in FD. You could build an El Camino.
And Samuel Hubinette had Bubba Drift. There was also the 4-door Charger that Samuel Hubinette drove, and I don't know if he ever won in that,
but let's just tell it like it is, though. Like, so if you have an American car, what makes it cooler than having Japanese parts on it? Like, you know what I mean? You're gonna run probably Japanese wheels because they're fucking sick. Like a Mustang on VSKFs is sick, right? Like a Mustang on like is there like, what other wheel would you put a Mustang on to make it like cooler than other Mustangs? It'd have to be a Japanese wheel. Like Blitz 03s. Blitz 03.
Oh, man. I put on some Fuel Surge.
Oh, dude, Surge. I'd probably go with the
Surge.
Fuel like Chaos.
I get the matte lip.
Oh, dude.
I get the matte lip with like the gloss black center.
Yo, y'all are sleeping. I'm putting the fucking neon green lip, and then I'm gonna get some splitters on the front and never take the guards off.
Center lines.
That's a Charger though.
I know, but I'm gonna borrow from it's melting pot.
It's a melting pot culture.
I do love that. That is the thing that I do enjoy, is whenever you see those like expensive muscle cars and they refuse to take the guards off because they think they look cool.
What guards?
The like splitter guard
The
thing.
banana.
That's like
they started making them pink so that they would encourage men to take them off more, because they weren't taking them off because they were yellow.
It's funny that like we coming up, like import cars got like really shit on.
Hella flack.
Like like, oh, you're all racers, rice rockets, rice cooker, all this ricey shit.
Dude, they used to call my car ping pong car at Mopac. They'd be like, oh yeah, you fucking ping pong car. I was like, what the fuck? Fuck you.
And then
Jared.
like all of a sudden, as soon as like a guy with a USDM car can do anything remotely like air quote ricey, they're like all the fuck about it. The same shit that you shit on me 15 years ago for. No, you're just fully just like a pig in shit about it.
Basically like, oh, like, you know, drifting became a thing, and then these Americans car dudes were like, yo, like we could drift too. And it's like, well, okay, sure. And it's like, it's sort of like that too, like in Formula D. Like I think the people, I mean, obviously there are people that absolutely love the Mustangs, but I think like the core guys like maybe still can't quite get down with the Mustangs compared to like, I don't know, the S15s or the new Supra, or like,
I kind of feel like if you're getting down with anything, you're getting down with the Mustang, though. It's been there the longest. It's done the best. It's not
I
a
don't know,
flash in the
man.
pan.
the what?
But-
No, say it again.
Yeah, it's not, like they've been there the longest. They've done the best. It's not just a flare up. It's not a fluke. It's not like one team is running a Viper or one team is running a GTO. It's like multiple teams are running the Mustang, or the same team is running multiple Mustangs. It's like it's a proven concept,
Do
I
they
mean-
get the same attention as like the S15s though?
I don't know how close that front suspension is to the stock front suspension. I don't know. Like those cars have so much money in development time, and like you could make a fucking a turkey
Almost-
drift for
well-
fucking that much money. You know what I mean?
A turkey?
I don't know. I'm just using it as
Why not just any other car? You chose a flightless bird, a penguin. It's marketing genius for all the, and that's I guess a little bit what I was getting into
Is
earlier.
that why?
like,
Is that why every Ford leaving cars and coffee just crashes into people?
marketing genius?
Ford what?
Marketing genius.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a free advertisement.
No, it's marketing genius. Like they promoted this car as a viable drift car, and then it's really just not.
But this is the thing that I'm kind of was saying before, like the North American manufacturers saw that there was like a market for like these young guys that wanted to build cars that didn't want to build muscle cars, or maybe they did or whatever, but there was the era where they didn't want to. And then they're like, hey, here's a perfect area where we can like actually peddle our goods. And it was Formula D. And you see this kind of like flood of US manufacturers coming in being like, yeah, build our drift car, drift American, and that did happen. And like you guys said, they did win.
I was gonna say, I have a feeling they're not marketing their cars to like young dudes, because like I don't think a young dude could go out and buy a brand new Mustang, but like that's totally not true at all. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
they can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
young
exactly.
dudes go out and buy like Subaru and like STIs and shit. It's not also a far-reaching idea to be like, hey, there's a good chance that we can get our hooks in these young guys really early. They're all coming out to this big drift event. They're going to watch this car annihilate and shred tires. It's the same reason why like Toyota had their thing too, right? They had Scion was meant to be, hey, if you are a younger person, that's where we're going to start you off in the Toyota brand. And then ultimately you buy a Toyota, and then later on in life you buy a Lexus. Like
That shit's just confusing, man. Like Lexus, Toyota, Acura, like Ford doesn't have a fucking executive line. I guess they do.
They
Never
may-
mind. They
did.
do. They have
Yeah.
Lincoln.
It's
Never
Lincoln.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they
Yeah,
legit
yeah.
had Mercury,
And
before.
Mercury.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's just like, it's just so stupid. It's like fucking
So
pick a brand and stick to it,
I
So
mean,
to
it
your
kind of makes
point-
sense though. Like, no, it kind of makes sense though. In the 70s, and then the 70s, like Toyota's known for like super efficient gas, cars. And then all of a sudden now in the 80s, are you going to spend 90,000 US
On a Toyota?
luxury Toyota car? No, you're not.
I guess
that-
some people legit don't know that that's the same brand. Like, I mean, yeah, even I swear, like my mother.
It's not the same brand. It's a Lexus, bro.
Yeah, it totally is. It's
Um,
crazy. Like different dealerships, different.
I mean,
everything.
an IS is not the same as an Altezza, and we both know that though.
Yeah, no, it isn't really.
Yeah.
But yeah, did they have different like Lincoln dealers? I don't think so. They just sold them at a Ford dealership, didn't they?
Yeah, a Ford
It
Mercury.
was Ford Lincoln Mercury.
Yeah.
So like you
exactly.
didn't go to a different place to buy a fucking Lincoln.
Yeah, but you knew you were buying a different trim because it had a different level attached to it. You knew. You
But
were
I mean,
buying into a
like
different
Lexus,
class
Infinity,
system.
all the Japanese
Yeah, they
brands.
had
But
to
in-
draw a
in Jap-
line.
No, but in Japan, like all those cars were sold. There's like Toyopet, There's like Toyota. There's like all
Yeah.
these different dealerships that sold at different levels of Toyota.
That's
as
true.
well.
Yeah. But then they just introduced Lexus, so then they had Lexus dealerships.
In 2000, and then
Yeah.
2005. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, to your point, Gerard, you're like, did they have to do this? It's like the Americans invented that whole like, let's call our same cars by different names, and like
Yeah,
how
I guess
many
so.
like, and then if you go into like the excess of the USDM market, like when Pontiac existed, like how many crossover did it's like there was a Chevy Cavalier and a Sunfire where the exact same car with different
There's
body
also a
panels on it.
Toyota Cavalier.
There's also
Well, they
the
also
Toyota
had
Cavalier.
Cadillac, Pontiac, GMC,
Yeah.
Chevrolet. Like holy fuck! And then they
Yeah,
had
they were-
Is
Dodge.
Buick separate?
Yeah, Buick, Oldsmobile, all those are GMs, man. Can you imagine
Yeah.
that? You got Buick, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Cadillac. Like, what the fuck? Like, there's so many cars.
I
Like,
didn't understand how funny the name General Motors was until like I was going over our last episode, and Gerard, you're talking about like engines and LSs, and you're like,
Mhm.
yeah, you just like it's a General Motor, and I was like, you're right, it is like they are generally everywhere. They're generally
A
everything.
motor, yeah.
Generally a car with a motor, like like
yeah.
Are they also GE and GM owned by the same people? General
I-
Electric, General Motor.
What about like what did Dodge bring? Dodge.
it gets really
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah.
Right, because it's like the same thing in different clothes. But to this point, now you have Hyundai like finally was like, wait a minute, if we're gonna do this, we need to be like Lexus or Acura, and now Hyundai has just like Genesis as its own line. So I guess it works on some people, but I mean,
It works, man. I mean, look at that Genesis GV, whatever the hell it is. It looks like a fucking Bentley, dude.
The
Like,
GV70.
I remember Dominic was like, "Yo, look at that Bentley." I was like, "No, that's a Hyundai." And like,
yeah,
I mean, you look at the interior, dude. It's got like diamond stitched seats and stuff. Like, it's crazy.
well, I mean that's what they've always had to compete on. It's like whenever it's a
But I mean, like, they're trying hard, man. They're
yeah, that's what I mean. You have to like completely try on.
have to.
Imagine it being like in the 80s and being like, man, look at that Lexus, man. Like they're really trying. It's got like power heated mirrors and like leather seats and like a 10 speaker system and like all this stuff and like it gets this mileage and like you're like,
I would
man,
never
they're,
buy
like,
one.
Stock air suspension. Yeah, but that was
Never.
It has to, and then you
that's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Korean stuff's pretty good, but like, I ain't buying a Hyundai for fucking 70
Like
grand.
that-
You know what I mean?
The Kia Stinger,
Yeah.
right? Like that's a pretty crazy car, isn't it? I want
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
to do with it because of
Yeah.
ass, but it's a crazy
Yeah.
car.
Yeah, it's
Stinger
like you
like-
look at it, you're like,
and
oh,
like-
there's one. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's like they must be taking the loss on it, but they have to be to get people
Yeah.
to like, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Remember when like Escalades were all the rage in like pop culture? It's just like everyone had to have an Escalade.
That's because they were fast as fuck, man.
I mean, that is
Yeah.
one thing I will say about America is that, yeah, they always just give you some completely ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
Like
SRT8
you want a
Cherokee. like,
700 horsepower, yeah, like SUV. Here you go.
yeah.
well,
You want a pickup truck that will just can't even go straight. It can only do burnouts. Here you go. Like
is that the Raptor?
you want a
TRX.
front wheel drive like 2-liter turbo car that just
They can't turn.
continuously lights it up and can't turn. Here you go.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they're
Toyota
really good
wouldn't
at
give you
just
that.
like,
Nissan wouldn't really give you that.
yeah, they're just really good at like putting a fucking trophy on a pig and just be like, yeah, go out there and like pretend you know what you're doing. You know what I mean? They're just like, okay, like here's what we got. Here's like, they're just like, oh, take this engine, take that suspension, make some cool wheels and put some stripes on it. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I guess that's cool.
Isn't that
For,
how
like,
the
10
Viper was
minutes.
actually built though? Wasn't that like the
Yeah.
Viper was just like they went into the
Sounds
bin?
about right.
Yeah. How can we
Yeah.
make this? There's a cobra. What kills a cobra? A mongoose? No, that sounds stupid. A viper. I mean, I guess there's always been that.
Yeah, like
it
what's the
comes back to
equivalent?
it.
What's the equivalent to a Viper in the Japanese cars? Like there isn't. There's nothing that fucking stupid and
Godzilla.
like crazy. What, the R34?
Yeah.
I mean,
But it's
No,
not
'cause, yeah,
stupid though. It's well
it's
thought
not.
out.
Yeah, it's
the Viper or the
refined.
34?
The 34.
Oh yeah, exactly.
The Viper
But
is
I
like
mean,
you
like,
burn your leg
I-
when you get out of it on the exhaust
Yeah,
pipes. Like
it's
it's
like-
not thought out.
No, but okay. So what would you Yeah, what do you guys consider like that car? I mean,
Doesn't exist.
exactly.
They're like, yo, like 6 liters. No. 7 liter. 8 liter. That's what we need. A fucking 8 liter V10.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
that sounds good. Sure. Yeah.
How much
yeah,
horsepower should it make per liter? Less.
yeah. 2.
Yeah. 2 horsepower per liter. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, like what does it even make? What is it? What does the 8 liter V10 make? The first gen Viper, like 350 horsepower or something.
Let me Google it.
Yeah.
They sound
Viper.
rad though. A
To
lot
me,
of like
so
it was.
that was part of why I like or thought import cars were cool. Where it's just like okay, like yeah, sure, your motor is that big, but you're not doing anything with it.
No.
You know.
It's like a Harley, man. Like make a bunch of
Yeah.
fucking
Exactly.
noise.
Okay. Sick. You
Like-
got a 1.2 liter motorcycle that fucking sucks.
I mean, I appreciate like choppers and stuff, but like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't get down with like the 1200 cc like 70 horsepower. No. Revs to fucking $6,000. No thanks. No.
This could be wrong, but it said the first gen made 510 horsepower. Is that
That's about right. I mean, 8
that's
No,
liters,
that's the third
510.
gen.
Yeah.
Third
yeah.
gen. Sorry, that's not right. Sorry, that's third gen. 400 horsepower.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So to put that into perspective, a Honda Civic 1.6 liter, like the base model piece of shit, makes 108 horsepower. That's like almost 70 horsepower per liter in a Honda. And like,
That's why. And then also, like, what did the Viper cost when it came out versus that Civic? You know, that's why it's
Yeah.
really hard to appreciate American cars when
yeah, like
you're
unless
my
you're
age.
just like fully
Where
just
it's
like
just like
stoked
it
on how big the engine is.
absolutely did not make any sense to buy anything American
Yeah,
when you were my age.
cool shit like the Type R and stuff. Like the Civic Type R motor, 185 horsepower out of 1.6 liters. That's like over 100 horsepower per liter, and it revs to $9,000 stock. That's insane. Like, I mean, now I think there's some closer. Could you imagine if that 8 liter had that? It would have
Yeah, exactly.
like 1,000 horsepower stock.
To me, though, always comes back to it's like being into import cars has always been about kind of like unlocking that potential and doing the things to make it be unreal, right? Like you said, Gerard, you put a turbo on a B series engine, nothing better than that, right? It's like there's so much potential there. Part of maybe the less of the draw for me was, especially in my early 20s, when the domestics were like trying to appeal to me, they were just like trying to connect the dots. It's like, what do you guys like? Different color lights? Okay. Horsepower? All right. You know, they were essentially building the car for you. I like different color lights, but I don't want them to do it for me. I want to do it myself.
They don't have good body kits.
Yeah.
How are you gonna have a domestic car when you can't buy a body kit for it, bro?
Maybe there should be a North American manufacturer that is like, hey, we should make good body kits for North American cars.
I mean, I guess they have all those wide bodies for the Mustangs and the Chargers and shit now.
That's
They definitely
true,
like
yeah.
that Shirokai or whatever in Russia. They got some crazy Mustang aero, like insane, dude. Like so crazy looking.
Don't they all just
It's
put
weird that they're
splitters
like
on
the
their shits
craziest
and-
Mustang arrows coming from Russia. That's like an interesting part.
Well,
to
that's
be in
because
the
like
world.
Americans don't know how to design aero. They don't even know what the fuck it's supposed to look like in the first place. And then when they do it, it just looks like garbage. So
Well, because they like how the car looks. That's why they bought it.
I mean, they look pretty
That's
good.
the thing, though, is what I'm saying is like out of the box, that car is meant to be like kind of like don't fuck with it too much.
I don't know. I don't
No?
think any car. I don't think
It's
any
the
car
400Z,
has that.
bro.
Yeah, it's your 400Z. Don't fuck with it too much.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you
mean,
can
I
make
guess
it
if you.
faster. Put different wheels
Yeah,
on
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Put a splitter on it or something, and a big old hood scoop.
This is what I think is a fucking trip. It's like you get all these dudes with Mustangs and shit with like BC coilovers, and it's like you like took your like pride and joy American car and put like fucking Chinese coilovers on it, fully embracing the import tuner culture. It's like these dudes are using like
What about
Junk.
Can-Am, bro? Can-Am's probably like the most universally used aftermarket accessory, and that shit's probably sure as fuck not made in USA.
But I just think coilovers generally, it's like, like American dudes probably back in the day didn't know what the fuck coilovers were.
Well,
Like,
yeah, coilovers.
yo, yo,
yeah.
yo,
What the
yo, I'm gonna
fuck
get
are
lowering
coilovers?
springs. And then like the one dude was like, yo, have you heard of coilovers? And they're like, what the fuck's that? And they're like, yo, you could like adjust the height. And they're like, yeah, let's get some coilovers. And then they're like, let's get some BCs. Because they make them for every car.
I also feel coilovers are more of a modern thing where the coil spring is not separate from the shock. Because if the shock mount is not meant to take the load of the coil spring, you can't really put a true coilover on it like an old car.
But on the front, you can. I mean, a lot of those have the coil over the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar. I'm just.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it's just funny because it's like that's their, they want their car to be cool, so they take like the most generic shit from like the import scene and like plop it onto their like American car.
Well, there goes our chance of ever getting BC Racing coilover sponsorship.
Oh,
fuck.
Sorry.
I'm not gonna have to bounce down the road now.
Yeah, every week we cross off another potential sponsorship.
That should be like a tally. Like, which sponsorship do we not get this week?
Yeah. But I mean, it's not like Coney and like what are the American manufacturers? There aren't even any fucking American manufacturers for like coils. What, like Eibach's making coilovers? I guess they do have now like the racing stuff, but like they're
Eibach
still like
German.
I think Eibach originally is German. Yeah.
Sounds pretty German.
Coney's Dutch. Like,
yeah.
Bilstein, German. Tokiko, Japanese.
That's a very American sounding name.
What, Tokiko?
If we've learned anything about this from this episode, is that anything from an American manufacturer would have like a wild as fuck name, like
exactly,
named after a horse, a snake, or like a fucking
American Eagle connecting rods.
Well, it's
Uncle
just
Sam's,
or they name it after themselves, like Edelbrock and Shelby.
Well, I mean, that's like when you go to SEMA and you see all those dudes that like the fat white like corporate dudes.
Yeah.
And that's like those are the guys making coilovers. Could you imagine? Like those guys are designing coilovers. It's like, so it's got to have a threaded body. It's got to be adjustable. It's got to like hold the road. And it's like, okay, cool. Like I don't know, hold the road for what? Driving straight down the fucking road? Maybe doing like one turn? I don't know. It's just weird, right?
I love when you do accents for no reason. It's a funny thing, though. I think though, to like whatever that deciphering moment was, to not for you make that choice. It's like, I like cars, but not all of these ones, like, and you just like whoop, and you move a whole pile of things over to the side. Like, I don't like two cars, Gerard. I like lots of cars.
Yeah.
What I would own. I really I do think like Type R's and shit. Like, I'm not crazy about the spaceship Type R, but like old Type R's, like an ITRs and stuff. Like, I like those. I like RX-7s. I just don't think I have the patience for them. I generally, if you were to, I like most import cars. I don't like most domestic cars.
All those cars that you just listed, Ryan, to me are very different. But to me, most American cars aren't that different.
Like, you could take any Japanese car, no matter how fucking old or new it is, and you sit in it, and it's like a baseline of like familiarity and like everything works, everything's ergonomic, everything's like kind of sick. Like, dude, you sit in a fucking Mustang, like I rolled fenders on an SN95 or like and dude, like the door handle is like, it's like a stick, and like the fucking window switches are like toggles. It's just so fucked up. It's so far from like, from what we know a car should be. It's like people just drive this thing. It's like, dude, like the seats, they're so weird. The dashboard's so weird. Like the ignition key is like this giant thing, and you turn it's like like it feels like it's out of a tractor. Like, I don't know, man. It's just hard to get down with any of that shit. Even if the thing has 500 horsepower, it's kind of like, I'd rather have a 200 horsepower fucking not that. You know what I mean? Like, and like, not to mention that you go drive the thing down the road and it handles like a piece of shit. Like, it's hard to argue with something that actually handles. You can live with it. It's reliable. It's like pretty fast and like kind of good on fuel. I mean, I still don't really know what I would honestly buy an American to compare to any of that.
Yeah. And going back to the beginning, given the budget that you might have for a car, it makes it even harder. Because, you know, it is very easy to be like, well, I'd have a Hellcat. It's like, well, yeah, you'd have a Hellcat. It's super fucking fast and it's a Hellcat.
But then you'd have to live with those shitty interiors.
Yeah, but in that
But I mean,
scenario,
that's a brand new car too. Like, you know.
Yeah, have you seen the interiors?
Yeah.
Like a new Camaro, terrible interior. It's fucking worst, man.
These hypothetical situations where it's like, if you had to drive one, what would you drive? And we all pick the crazy one. That's not the reality of the situation, because it's like, we don't actually have that type of money to spend on like the top of the line, like crazy out of the box cars. So you're buying the pedestrian version of a car, and none of it is as appealing as an import. Like full on would drive a Camry before I drove like almost any domestic. Like if you line them up and they're like, you have to drive this for 5 years, I'd like, give me the Camry full on, and I'd be fucking stoked about it. And people would be like, why didn't you take the GT500? I'd be like, this is a fucking Camry, man.
Yeah, I don't know if you can compare a 500 to a Camry, but like a Mustang V6.
But like, what about like over like 10 years of ownership?
Yeah,
10 years of ownership, only car you have. You can take the GT500 or the Camry, you know?
I'm fucking taking the two-tone Camry and putting wheels on it and lowering it, and just fucking me and Kevin are driving around post.
I don't know, man. No, like, you probably have like a lot bigger smile on your face driving that Mustang, and you know, you'd have to do some work and stuff, but
I mean,
no, I like want the
Camry. I would not take a Camry over a GT500. No,
that sounds, I don't know that I would either.
Like if it was, like I said, if you're talking like an EcoBoost or a V6, I'd be like, no.
Yeah, you're picking like the top of the line Mustang, like
for real life functionality. I could put my whole family in a Camry, and I could do things to it that I like, and get decent like gas mileage. I wouldn't have
do we need to fit our family in it? I can't have any of those fucking cars.
No, it's like
exactly.
That's what we're saying. It's like the only car you have at this point.
Yeah.
You know?
Then what am I doing?
I couldn't have either of those fucking cars. How are my 3 kids gonna fit in a goddamn Camry?
You get smaller car seats. I don't know, man. That's your problem. Like, that's what I'm saying.
I guess you're getting a Econoline.
Yeah,
I'd just be buying like a whatever the fastest. I'd be like an SRT Cherokee or something. Like, I don't know. Those things probably aren't very expensive these days. I don't know.
But that's the thing, is that you're not also doing that because you bought an Infinity. Like, you know, like,
I did. Yes.
You know, these are the things. It's like,
and it's crazy too, because like I couldn't tell you like you know, well, let's call it, I spent 18 grand on the Infinity QX, and it's like would I spend 18 grand ever on a domestic SUV? Like would it have to be like a 2020 or 2018? Because I wasn't briefly looking at like, you know, comparatively, I was looking at like Tahoes and stuff, and it's like, I guess I'm looking at like a 2017 Tahoe versus a 2012 Infinity QX56, and I'm thinking, okay, I want the big engine, I want like the like luxury package, I want the whole 9 yards, and it's like I couldn't even bring myself to look at one, man. I was just like, no.
That's what I'm getting at.
They look good on the internet, and like maybe they have some features, but like I'd have to live with a Chevy. I don't know if I could do that.
That's what I'm getting at. In these hypothetical situations, it's always like, what would you take? And this isn't a what would you take situation. It's what would you live with? What would you pay out of pocket for? And none of those cars ever even enter into our mind of what would you pay out of pocket for? Like, you know, like,
yeah, it's like a 5-car Japanese list before the first American car.
It's a fucking 10-car Japanese list. Like, honestly, like, I'm like, you get me to go down that, I'm going through. It might even be a 20-car.
2 separate lists. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
Would you pick a Korean car before an American car?
I think I might.
Now we got a real debate. Now we got a real debate.
I would, yeah. I actually think I'd pick a Korean car before I pick a
Kia Stinger or
100.
Wait, what's a comparative American car to a Kia Stinger? It'd probably be the Taurus SHO.
No, it's CTSV. No,
No, man, the Stinger's 4-wheel drive.
4-wheel. I thought it was
All-wheel
rear-wheel
drive. No, I don't
thought
think they
the
make a rear-wheel
Stinger
drive one.
GT is rear wheel, is it not?
No, it's all-wheel
They
drive.
drift that car.
Well, they probably took some shit out. Yeah,
I thought it was
it's
rear wheel.
99% sure it's all-wheel drive.
I don't look up cars like I can't buy.
But for example, those new cop cars, those new
Yeah.
SHO Tauruses, are insanely fucking fast.
Oh yeah.
They're like some EcoBoost
yeah, exactly.
V6, like they probably like 350 horsepower or something. They're
Yeah,
fucked
the
up fast.
2022 Kia Stingers, 3.3 liters, turbocharged V6, all-wheel drive, torque.
Yeah.
converter.
So look up the SHO 2020 SHO. It's probably all-wheel drive. It's probably the same horsepower.
It says on the Kia Stinger GT right here, rear-wheel drive is standard, but all-wheel drive is an option.
Oh,
Get that
okay.
real.
Well, then you can't really compare those two then. But let's just compare all-wheel drive to all-wheel drive then.
What are we comparing?
A Taurus SHO.
Oh,
365.
Shit, it's
on
only
93.
4,000 pounds.
The Taurus is a
Holy
V6
shit.
making 365.
Yeah, dude.
How much did the Stinger make?
The Stinger made
300 something.
365. Same. Exactly
The
the same.
Stinger's a nicer looking car. I'd take.
But
the
yo,
Stinger.
that thing is only 4,000 pounds. What's a Stinger weigh? I mean, that Taurus is ugly as fuck.
2022 Stinger weighs 4,025 pounds.
Oh wow, they're the exact same weight, eh? I'm
And-
surprised those
and
cars are that
horsepower.
light because I'm looking at a 550 horse Taurus, but it's apparently a 2013. So like you could fully have like an old ass Taurus with a shit ton of horsepower.
You could have an 89 Taurus with 1,300 horsepower.
No, I'm just saying like this is a new car, so you probably like chip it and like put intercoolers on it and like it's
Change
an
the
EcoBoost.
turbo and put bigger injectors and
Yeah.
change. Yeah, like mill the head and like
I mean, I could almost get down with a cop car looking car that was like fast as fuck. You know what I mean? Because those cop cars,
Maybe.
when I first saw the new one, I was like, yo, that looks sick. And I was like, wait, that's a cop car? Like, because they had the black wheels and they're white and stuff. Like, they kind of like look sick. This
What
thing's
do
pretty
they
cool,
kinda look
man.
like? Which one?
450 pound-feet of torque in a fucking all-wheel drive Taurus. Like, that thing probably rips.
I guess we have the answer to this week's episode.
I mean,
Yo,
it's kind of a blob.
Taurus?
It fully just looks like a
Yeah.
Camry. It's totally
I was
a
about
blob.
to say all you're excited about is an American Camry right now.
But I mean, it's,
you're the American Kevin right now, and it's amazing.
Yo,
well,
this
you know what's
thing's kinda
crazy?
cool, man.
You
Yo,
look
like
up
400 horsepower. D for done.
Stance Taurus, and it's like those two do not exist. Like you just find the old ones, but they don't exist in the same realm. It's like 2020 Taurus
Yeah.
and Stance. Like, ain't nobody doing that. What do you think a 2016 Taurus is worth? Like $20? Like they're probably fucking worthless. Okay, so it's obviously a race car. It has a suede wrapped steering wheel, like where you put your hands.
Oof.
The shit is suede
Oof.
on a Ford Taurus. Can you imagine that?
But maybe Gerard just answered the question. It's like, it's the Ford Taurus show. That is the right answer of like a bargain. It can be built to go fast. It's a sedan. It's all-wheel drive, plain until you make it look
It's
cool.
all those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe that is the answer, man.
it's-
Like, fuck.
Maybe there's an aftermarket there, man. We should get into
You gotta,
SHOs
you gotta
instead
see
of Nissan.
the beauty. Yeah, exactly. In the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, man. All right. I guess we fucking solved it. It took us a long
right.
time to get there. Check out Serial9's website for the upcoming
For your Taurus
Ford
parts.
Taurus show parts. Maybe buy a sweater and some stickers while you're there, or
Yeah.
don't bother buying suspension parts for a Toyota or a Nissan because the future is the Ford Taurus show. So, all right. Well, on that note, thanks for listening to the Serial Podcast 9.
All right. See you later, guys.
Bye.
America. Fuck yeah.
Thanks for listening to Serial Podcast 9.